quote unquote free speech advocate, someone that we never took seriously at RBN, which made a lot of people upset, but we told you guys that RFK was a fraud. When you are weak on Israel, that will lead you to be weak on all other issues. I had a viral tweet not too long ago where I explained this, where the reason why RFK Jr. wasn't speaking out against the mass crackdown on people who are holding our government responsible for endless wars and genocide is because he has to support the Israeli position. When you are weak on Israel Palestine, that forces you to be weak on all other issues. People who pretend that RFK was anti-war was ignoring his position on Iran when he advocated for sanctions and maximum pressure on Iran. That is not an anti-imperialist candidate. His actions will lead to war. This is things I explain all the time. If you want to go back to my very friendly debate I had with someone I still respect, Pasta, where we talk about this, where I explain, like, bro, there's a lot of very deeply problematic things. I had a few RFK supporters I explained this to, but we're gonna get to that a little bit later because RFK 100% supports this. The entire right wing, as I've been trying to explain to people who've been trying to pretend that the right wing is for free speech. Whenever people pretended that was the case for years, and shame on everyone who did that, I will repeat to those people, hey man, the right wing is not for free speech. Look at what they think about BDS. Look at their position on Israel Palestine. And then whenever I said that for years, people are like, oh yeah, you're technically right, but come on, man. Come on, man, that's just one issue. Other than that, they good on free speech. Not really. I called out these frauds on the right for their loyalty to Israel, their embarrassing cuck-like behavior, their subservient behavior to Israel. These people know who their real masters are. These people pretend they're alpha males. They pretend that the left is weak. They talk about the weak left men. Did you hear people say that? They be like, the weak left men. There is nothing more fucking beta male than kowtowing to your government, fucking bootlicking your government, being afraid of revolution, bowing to the Zionists like that fucking coward Joe Rogan did. There's nothing more beta than seeing police marching down the street and you saying, thank you for your service, sir. Fighting for your liberty and freedom is the most based thing you can do. If you live in an unjust government and you have family, it's your job as a man to oppose authoritarianism or anything that suppresses the rights of you and your family. But there are these people like Megyn Kelly. There are these right-wingers. They're like, oh my God, look at these college students. They spoil kids. Look at these leftists. They're fucking spoiled. They're spoiled. Megyn Kelly, like, oh my God, look, why would you protest? You must be ugly. You must not be having enough sex. They're beta. No, there's nothing more fucking weak if you as a man accept the tyranny being imposed on your life. So the entirety of white America and the entirety of these fake alpha males, like the Andrew Tate motherfuckers, these bootlickers who actually never challenged power, they pretend that being a man is, oh, you gotta hustle, grind, you gotta steal labor value, join the capitalist class. We gotta join the capitalist class because we can't defeat them. We can't have revolution, so we gotta join them. Nigga, you a beta male, in my opinion. What we need to do, we need to serve revolution. The real man fucking challenges their government. You have a large portion of white America, the people who pretend they're alpha males, people who pretend they support freedom and all that are cheering on. White Americans talk about give me liberty, give me death. Give me liberty or give me death. And then they see young people, their children friends stand up against this tyrannical government. And they're like, oh my God, why won't you guys submit? Submit to the government like I did. I submitted. I submitted to the government. I don't raise a ruckus. You have this the House and our government telling us that we can't criticize another country. We can't criticize a whole ass country that we send our taxpayer money. We send our taxpayer money to Israel, and they get free healthcare, free education, and then the ruling class tell us not to criticize Israel, and white people like, yes, sir. Yes, we know who our masters are. These cowards know exactly who their masters are. And then they want to look at the left, and then these people say left men are betas. Fam, explain to me how that makes sense at face value. You have these white men bootlicking the government. And then they say the people on the left are weak. You guys are weak. You guys are the beta males. You guys are afraid of the heat. We have young Gen Z people looking at the police state. These motherfuckers are armed. They are armed to the teeth. They're threatening to ruin their life, and you got a bunch of Gen Z kids standing up against them. It's the most alpha shit you can possibly do in your life. Every single guy at these protests are the most alpha male motherfuckers you can find, because they looking at our police state, the most violent empire known to man, and they saying, fuck you. Meanwhile, white men, white boomers, white Gen X motherfuckers, like Rogan and all these other motherfuckers who condemning the protests, like Jesse Waters and RFK Jr., these people who condemning the protests, they think they're the alpha males, but they will never ever challenge power like the way these Gen Z, quote unquote, weak men leftists do. You had Joe Biden, Genocide Joe, that essentially told people, hey man, if you're protesting my genocide, you're an anti-Semitic scum and we deserve to stick the police state on us. And then RFK Jr., the person who's running against him, Republicans, the people who pretend they are oppositional to Joe Biden, agree that Biden should have the power, that our state should have the power to suppress anyone who dissents against Biden's wars. So you guys see how RFK Jr. is a fake dissident, which we explain on RBN all the time. So this is the whole thing with the right wing. They're pretending that RFK Jr. and their wing, oh, we're the right wing that works out. The left wing, they don't like to work out. They post these gay-ass videos of RFK Jr. doing push-ups. And they're like, oh my God, look how sexy RFK Jr. is. Fucking beta male motherfuckers. Grown-ass men posting videos of RFK Jr. working out like, oh my God, look how sexy he is. Oh my God, he's gonna fucking fight for us. No, he's a pussy. You guys saw, I work out too. I'm not fucking doing, we don't have to do that. We don't have to project that shit. You guys saw the 24-inch pythons I have. I don't have to project that weakness. I trained Muay Thai for 12 years. I'm a bad man. We don't have to project this shit because we find our government. Anyway, let me continue this because we're going to see the most ultimate beta behavior on display here. This is RFK Jr. telling you guys that, yeah, we may have criticisms of the government, but you better not dissent too hard. If you dissent too hard, that's when it's a problem. But anyway, let's get to it.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an independent presidential candidate. Before we get to the politics, there's a lot of craziness going on. Scary stuff on college campus. The president's been hiding. What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, it's very, very alarming. It's puzzling because it's happening on the private campuses, and they actually have a lot more leeway for controlling this. You know, I'm all for peaceful protests, for freedom of speech. But you can't threaten people. You can't intimidate people.
Fam, this is RFK Jr. passionately coming out against free speech. Do you understand what he just said here? He said that RFK, he's puzzled because technically, if you're a private institution, you have the right to crack down on freedom of speech more than if it was a public institution. So RFK is saying, since you guys are private institutions and you guys don't have to follow the First Amendment, why aren't you guys violating their First Amendment rights? Do you guys hear the unhinged garbage that RFK Jr. just said right now? That literally if people are intellectually honest, anyone who ever said anything nice about RFK Jr. ever should cover this. This is me putting the call to my friends too. If you ever say anything nice about RFK, you better cover this because this is the most unhinged argument against free speech I have ever heard, because what free speech absolutists, they would say, they said we should stand for the principle of free speech. So they were like, they say, well, social media companies, they should allow free speech because even though technically they're not the government, technically we should support the concept of free speech. Here's RFK Jr. saying that, hey, these colleges are private, so why don't they crack down on freedom of the speech? It's crazy. I'm going to play that part again. I'm going to let it continue. It's so insane that he just said this part out loud.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an independent presidential candidate. Before we get to the politics, there's a lot of craziness going on, scary stuff on college campus. The president's been hiding. What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, it's very, very alarming. It's puzzling because it's happening on the private campuses, and they actually have a lot more leeway for controlling this. I'm all for peaceful protests, for freedom of speech. You can't threaten people, you can't intimidate people, you can't trespass, you can't prevent students from going to their classes, you can't break private property. Those are law enforcement issues. The private campuses can easily redress this. They can end this. The state schools have already done it, almost all of them. Oh, and they have a lot less leeway because they're subject to the First Amendment. The private campuses are not. The First Amendment doesn't function on the private.
He said it again, my friends. This is him saying, he like, man, technically we have a First Amendment. He like, yeah, technically, if we want to get in the weeds, man, technically they can protest. But man, you don't have to follow the First Amendment because you're a private company. Hey, come on, man. Stop letting them motherfuckers use freedom of speech. We don't have to do that. Guys, this goes against everything the right wing has been saying for the last decade or two now. There would be someone who would say unhinged racist comments on their social media feed. They will get fired for it. And then the right wing will come out and say, oh my God, this person is getting canceled for saying the N-word or something like that. They will say, yeah, and then the argument from the right wing would be, yeah, we know that this is not the government, it's a company, but we should support free speech as a principle. This is what these people have been saying for years now. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, technically you're a private institution. You can crack down on anyone who criticizes Israel. Do you guys see how Israel completely rioted the brains of a large segment of white America who they just repeat this garbage? RFK is extremely popular, even after coming out as a traitor to this country. Like he's an open traitor to this country, and he's still popular. I said on the show before, Zionists are Confederate level traitors. RFK is advocating against freedom of speech, against freedom of expression. Why? Because of Israel. And people still like him. People still like this guy. Do you guys know how crazy every single white dude with a YouTube show, how crazy they would go if RBN or any black person during the George Floyd protest was saying this shit? If any black person was saying that we need to silence anyone who is critical of reparations, anyone who's critical of defund the police, we must censor them. We must pull their funding. The only minority group that is allowed to do this is Zionist Jews, as they pretend they are the victim. Zionist Jews, people, emphasis on Zionist part. Zionist Jewish people are the only minority group that can get immediate congressional hearings. They can get legislation passed, and they have a private militia known as the police to enforce their will. And then they still pretend they're the victims. Anyway, let's continue. I'm gonna play this part again because this is RFK passionately coming out against freedom of speech. And I'll be paid in. Let's see how many people are gonna cover this. Because there's only one free speech faction, as I said. People thought I was being divisive. They're like, Nick, why don't you give the right wing enough credit? I told you guys. RBN, the Marxist left, we're the only principled free speech motherfuckers out here. All these motherfuckers gotta have exceptions. But anyway, let's continue.
threaten people. You can't intimidate people. You can't trespass. You can't prevent.
Oh, yeah, let me address
students
this
from
before I
going
let
to their
continue, because you guys see how he says, and this is the messaging coming from the professional managerial class, the capitalist class, the people who hate dissent. They're saying you can't occupy buildings. Guys, that's the longest standing form of nonviolent protest that there is occupation of buildings. The ruling class is now taking occupation of buildings off the table. They are taking effective revolutionary tactics off the table, and they are doing it on purpose because they know it's effective. They say, oh, well, you can't make people feel uncomfortable. What does that even mean? That doesn't even mean anything. Listen to the garbage about like you can't make people feel threatened. What does that mean? Anyway, I'll let it play again. Now I'm gonna expand more on that point, because these same people who would condemn Hamas, RFK Jr. he hates Hamas so much he's down for killing hundreds of thousands of people, innocent civilians, in order to get rid of Hamas. So these people who, like, oh my God, you can't support revolution and violent resistance, and then people who engage in peaceful protests, the occupation of buildings, which has always been peaceful. And now they say, oh, you can't do that peaceful protest. And then people are like, okay, we can't occupy buildings. Okay. A lot of professional managerial class people are like, okay, we can't occupy buildings. I get it. So let's boycott then. Since that's nonviolent, we're not occupying anyone. We just putting our money where our mouth is. We voting with our dollars. So let's boycott Israel. No, you can't do that. We got an anti-Semitic bill. You're anti-Semitic if you boycott Israel. If you're a government employee, you must pledge support to Israel. You will not be hired. You can't get a government contract in this country unless you pledge that you won't boycott Israel. So you can't boycott Israel. You can't occupy buildings and publicly protest against Israel. You can't resist Israel with armed resistance. You can't protest on the float. You can't protest on a boat. You can't protest from a bar. You can't protest from afar. You can't protest over there. You can't protest anywhere. You can't protest in the house. You can't protest with a mouse. They're so ridiculous. I gotta drop Dr. Seuss on these motherfuckers because they're so ridiculous. And white America like, yeah, you can't do that. You can't protest. You can't do that. Fuck yeah, you can't protest over there. And I'm not holding back on you guys feeling no more, because you gotta talk to we gotta get this shit straight, man. I see people complain on all my videos now. I don't give a fuck. Until you guys talk to the family members who I'm talking about, I am not letting up. I am not letting up until you guys stop doing shit. Well, I don't like talking about politics. No, you sit there and explain you talk to your family like, why the fuck you support Israel? We are beyond done. There's no more of this shit. You're like, well, I'm not one of them. Well, you know your uncle's a Zionist. Anyway, let me continue. I'm not gonna piss you off too much. Let's continue.
You can't threaten people. You can't intimidate people. You can't trespass. You can't prevent students from going to their classes. You can't break private property. Those are law enforcement issues. The private campuses can easily redress this. They can end this. The state schools have already done it, almost all of them. Oh, and they have a lot less leeway because they're subject to the First Amendment. The private campuses are not. The First Amendment doesn't function on the private campus. All the private campuses want to have open debate, but if people are being racist, if they're being anti-Semitic, and I've heard the shouts from these crowds, and they're appalling.
Yeah, they're just
look at RFK Jr., the social justice warrior. RFK Jr. and Jesse Waters, the social justice warriors. Do you guys remember that cringe ass shit? I tell you guys, I hate culture war. I hate that entire chapter of American history, the social justice warrior wars, and the people hated quote unquote social justice warriors because social justice warriors would say, "Oh, you guys are saying stuff that are racist. You are saying stuff that make black people and brown people feel uncomfortable." And white America freaked the fuck out. Us having some white allies who may be misguided in some ways. They may be a little bit goofy, you know what I mean? Social justice warriors, they used to say stuff that made me cringe too. but they were advocating caring about people's feelings, being mindful about our language. And these white allies who advocated this behavior was universally scorned by white America. They was hated by white America and attacked as social justice warriors. They, the purple hair college girl, the white leftists who are social justice warrior. That is what the entirety of the right wing is right now. The same thing they mocked. The most insane caricature of what a social justice warrior was, it is what right wing people are right now. Once again, guys, there's a lot of caveats because I don't even accept the argument that a lot of right wingers made on social justice warriors. But the caricature of these people is exactly what many white right wing Americans are for Israel. All of a sudden, you got to care about the feelings of the Jewish people. You're making people feel unsafe. Look at the chants. Look at what they're saying. They're making me feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. We need to crack down their speech. We need to get these people fired. We can have open dialogue. Everything they said about social justice warriors, culture warriors on the left, is literally what they are. And who told you guys that up front? Who told you guys that the entire woke culture war was bullshit? We told you guys these culture wars are bullshit because they're here to trick you, to convince you that these people are on your side. But they're openly hypocritical. But I'm going to continue because we got a lot to cover. Because Jesse Waters, after RFK Jr. snowflake social justice warrior meltdown in his safe space on Fox News, Jesse Waters is going to chime in their safe space, and he's also going to have a social justice warrior style meltdown. Let's continue.
But, if people are being racist, if they're being anti-Semitic, and I've heard the shouts from these crowds, and they're appalling.
Yeah, they're just absolutely disgusting. Some of the tactics also pretty disgusting. We're hearing that the Biden legal team is throttling you guys by the throat. What's the truth?
You mean Mike?
Actually, for the sake of time, I was about to cover this. Well, for the sake of time, I'll move on because I just mostly want to cover RFK on the protest. So I'm actually going to move on from here. You guys hear RFK and Jesse Waters strongly coming out against freedom of speech in one of the most belligerent ways. And what I think is the ultimate irony of this is RFK Jr. is criticizing people for protesting his rival. That's how strong their ties to Israel are. They are making extreme blunders like this. These people are protesting Biden's wars.